The non-free kick paid for insufficient intent at the end of the North Melbourne Fremantle game is a very contentious one and has been discussed ad nauseum. There's about 3 or 4 different things to break down here. I'm going to do it as succinctly as possible. Firstly, if you look at it, take the siren out of it. It was going to be paid, and it should have been paid based on how the rule's been adjudicated all year. They paid one 20 seconds earlier. This one was clearly going to be paid, and obviously you heard it on the ARC footage, same footage as Fox, but pay it. So that was clearly going to be paid. I can see our Fremantle supporters feeling pretty robbed looking at the kick. It's gone out. There wasn't an intent to keep it in play, and it's bounced straight out. Then you've got the AFL and their grey area and their rulings. This is where it really irks me that we have this situation, the AFL comes out and ticks off on it. As they do all of these controversial ones, they tick off in some way, shape or form. So the ball was kicked, and then it's deemed that the siren went as the ball was going out of bounds. Now, the game doesn't end until the umpire hears the siren and calls time. The ball is also not out of bounds until the boundary umpire calls it as out of bounds. So not only does the ball have to get out of bounds, the boundary umpire's got to go, yep, that's now out of play, stick their hand up and blow their whistle. So you're waiting on a little bit of human reaction time, which obviously shortens the game a little bit. The ball was kicked. You can see 0 seconds on the clock at various stages with the ball still in play, but the siren's yet to go. So the clock goes from 1 second remaining to 0.999, and it must go straight to 0 seconds because there is always a delay between that 0 on the broadcaster's clock and the siren. So those screenshots showing 0 seconds are probably not quite accurate as to when the siren should have gone. But the AFL's got the grey area. They love living in the grey. That's basically everything. Free kick, did he duck his head? Did he drive his head? Insufficient intent. Prior opportunity, did he have a chance? Players are deemed to have prior opportunity when they've got one arm pinned and they're sitting on the ground. They can have all the prior they want. They can't legally dispose of it. So you have to ball it up. But that's considered a good tackle now and holding the ball. So it's just more grey area from the AFL, and we know that's what they love. But let's look at it a little further as to what should happen. Because this either directly or indirectly has affected the result of the game. Now, you're sitting on one side of the fence. You can see how the umpires have got to their decision in the heat of the moment. They can't review it. That was obviously spoken to the Fremantle captain, Alex Pearce, there at the time. No, we can't review it. Game's over. If they had the shot on goal, they still had to score a point, potentially score a goal to win, or out on the fall or fall short, and same result. So they still had to go and take the chance, but they never got it. Also worth pointing out, North Melbourne had led from early in the game to that point. They've never fallen behind. So it feels in a lot of ways the right team won, but the other team didn't have a chance to win the game, and absolutely that feels unfair. Here's what should happen, and they need to change the rule for this. There's no reason why they shouldn't change the rule right now. For the end of quarters, halves, and games, get rid of this. The boundary umpire has to call it as out, and the field umpire has to hear the siren and blow their whistle. Just turn it into a basketball-style situation where as soon as that clock hits 0, yeah, you can have a human hitting the siren, but that's the reviewable point. And then obviously make it reviewable. My biggest gripe with the review system, aside from the fact the technology's garbage, is it slows the game down massively, and we're looking at whether a ball was or wasn't touched miles out from goal. I'd much rather they just stick with the call and we get on with it and play on. It's not. We're not fixing howlers. We're finding ones that wouldn't have been picked up otherwise, and then debating over whether they were or weren't right free kicks. We're losing game time, so they've brought in this rule you can play on as soon as a point's kicked. But now, if there's a review, the ball sits on the ground, we've got to wait, the other team sets up, makes it really tough. If you review at the end of a quarter, a half, three-quarter time, end of a game, there's no actual time being lost. Like, the players are going off into their respective huddles, or the game's finished and nothing extra is happening. Why wouldn't you review where the ball was when the clock hit 0 to determine whether a free kick could or couldn't be paid? Now, the ball has to bounce out of bounds in this scenario. You can't say there was no intent from the point he kicked it. The free kick's paid where the ball goes out of bounds. And if that ball bounces inwards, and takes another half second off a clock and then bounces out, it might be a little bit clearer, but you cannot pay the free kick until it's gone out of bounds. And for an insufficient intent or deliberate, there are two acts. There's the act of having no intent, and then there's the act of the ball actually getting over the line. And it was kicked long down the line. Our ball's an egg shape, it bounces funny ways. So make it reviewable. There will be no confusion, no hesitation if you had a frame by frame and the clock side by side. And the clock has to obviously go to a thousandth of a second. And you just watch it tick, tick, tick. And as soon as it's zero, if the whole ball is not over the line, there is no case to answer. Now, you've got human timing with the umpires hearing it, blowing their whistle, all of that. They've just got an earpiece up to the guy in the arc and that ruling comes down and we live with it. And no one can argue with it. That's the thing. This is a round 2 game. 2 teams who the rate for how are going won't make the finals, and North will probably be lucky to still be there. So let's call it what it is. If this happens in a final, or God forbid a grand final, why wouldn't you review it? Side by side, it'd be simple. And even the team that lost, yeah, it'd suck to lose and have that there right there in that moment. But you'd be able to live with it a lot better than thinking, gee, I reckon the siren went before the ball was out of bounds. We should have had a shot. Who knows? We would have kicked it. We've been robbed. It would just make so much more sense to use this technology they paid so much money for and just throw this in. They brought the footage back, but this was not reviewable, and really it should have been.